Hello there all my lovely jewelry makers, I'm Christina of CSLdesigns, and in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to make these romantic hearts braided wirework bracelets. Now the final look is really cute and we're using both wire, cord and beads to achieve this look. And if you like any of these, they will be available for sale in my shop. Link will be in the description box down below. Or if you want to support me in any other way so I can continue making these tutorials for you, you can always like, share and subscribe. And there's even a super thanks button down below. Otherwise, if you want to learn how you can make one for yourself or someone you love, then keep watching. So these are the materials that we're going to need. First of all, the wire that I'm using is a regular round silver coated copper wire and the gauge is a 0.8mm. And then we need our cord. So I'm using a 1.5mm leather cord in a pink metallic colour. You can of course use whatever you want to. And the beads are 3mm rounds. I'm using faceted silver coated hematite gemstone rounds. Of course you can use whatever you want to. Just make sure the holes are large enough to take the wire through. And then we need our findings as well. So I'm using these ribbon ends here to finish off the ends of the bracelet. And they have these loops we can attach our findings. So I've got lost or claw clasp extended chain and a few jump rings to put it together. And along with the ribbon ends, I'm also going to be using this E6000 glue. And then we need some tools. So first of all, I got my flush cutter so we can cut our wire, some chain nose and tweezer nose pliers for the ribbon ends and the jump rings, a pair of scissors to cut our cord with, and then a spring clamp to help hold our lengths in place while we're braiding. So you can always check out the description box below the video for the material list and useful links. Otherwise, let's get it all ready and let's get started. Then we need some lengths to work with. So first of all, I have 4 lengths of my wire of about 35 centimeters each. Then I also have 4 lengths of my cord, but these are about 30 centimeters each. I then take all the lengths and put the ends together so they're even, and then I put them into my spring clamp, and I've also put them in order. So I have my 4 cords in the middle and then 2 lengths of wire on either side, and this is going to be our starting point. I'm then going to start the braid without beads to begin with to get into the rhythm of it. So what I'm going to do is start with one side at a time. I'm just going to grab the very outer wire and bring that over all the others, so in towards the middle there, over the other wire and also over the leather cords in the middle, and then just kind of put a bit of a curve to it while pushing it over towards the other side, but we don't want it to come straight across, so just something a bit like that. Then I'm going to take the outer wire on the opposite side and I'm going to go underneath the next wire. So we'd want to do opposite because it's braiding, and we also want it to come over the leather cords in the middle, but we also need to make a braid with the wires, so that means I also need to bring it over the top of the other wire, because when braiding we're always doing over under, and because we just went under that previous one, that means we need to go over the next one, which is the one in the middle. So we have them in position like that, and they're crossing over in the middle on the front of the cords. Next we need to use the other lengths of wire. So again, think over under. So if we look where the wire is coming from, it's coming underneath the wire that we previously moved there. So that means this wire we're going to move now needs to come over the next one. So just bring it over the top of that one and then in towards the middle, over the cords. And on the other side, if we look at the top there, this length of wire coming straight down is going over the top of the other one. That means it needs to come underneath the next one here, which it's naturally doing. But then as we're going to bring it into the middle, we need to bring it over the top of the one that's already in there. So we make sure we have the over, under, and again over the cords as well. And then just have them cross over in the middle. So we now have 2 crossover points at the front of the cords. So before I make any more movements with the wires, what I'm going to do is take my cords here and then split them down the middle. So I have 2 towards one side and 2 towards the other. Then I'm going to take the 2 on the right here and just bring them out to the side, and in between the 2 wires there, bring them over the top of that bottom one and then straight back down. The same with the other one. Just bring those 2 in between the wires and over the top of that bottom one so they come back out to the front. And then just bring them back together in the middle there. And then I'm going to continue to braid. So I'm going to take this top wire on the right side. Doesn't matter what side you start with. It's just what comes natural to me. So previously it went underneath up here on that crossover point. So that means I'm going to bring it over the top of this bottom wire as I'm bringing it into the middle. And in this case, I'm then going to also bring it underneath the cords. So I'm going to make sure to hold the cords together and make sure to keep the position so they're lying flat next to each other. And then you kind of hug this wire around the sides of the cords, and that is now coming out towards the other side. And then on this side here, I'm going to take the top length of wire. That needs to go underneath the next wire down here. And then as we're bringing it into the middle, we need to then bring it over the top of the middle wire that we just brought from the other side, but again underneath the cords, and then just pull it tighter in towards the middle. So if I just kind of move the cords out of the way, we still get that crossover, but now it's behind the cords. And we kind of use these wires as well to help keep the cords in place and tighter together. So now I've got the basic rhythm of the braid going. What I'm going to do now is also start to add the beads in. So I'm still focusing on just making the braid with the wires. We're just going to do it either behind or in front of the cords. So just check again your crossover points. You can always move the cords out of the way if you need to. I can see that this top length of wire on the right, I need to bring over the next one because it's coming underneath previously. And then just bring that into the middle. And in this case, I'm going over the front of the cords. So that is the first movement. And on the other side, we again just need to make sure we bring it over and under in the right way. So in this case, I need to bring it underneath the next one and into the middle. And that comes over the top of the middle one as well that we brought from the other side. And again, obviously in front of the cords as well. So we get that crossover point, just flatten everything out. So now we made the first crossover point in front of the cords in this little next section here, which means before I move any more wires, I'm going to add in my beads, and I'm going to add my beads on the outer lengths there. So just one at a time, let it drop all the way down. I'm just going to do the other one as well. Same on the other side, let it drop all the way down so it can't go any further. And then I'm going to do my next movement. So this one comes underneath. That means I need to go over the top of the next one. And I'm just going to make sure that bead stays in that outer corner and just gets trapped in place as I'm then bringing the wire over and into the middle and also again over the cords. And then that just gets trapped right there on the outer edge. And on the other side, it needs to come underneath. So bring the wire under the next one, over the cords, and then also over the wire we just brought from the other side, and making sure that bead stays on that outer corner and gets trapped in place. And then just smooth out your wires however you need to as you go, because they will get a bit misshapen from the warmth on your hands and fingers. And then you can see we now have this little hat section with the beads in place, which means the next movements we're going to do, we're going to have to start bringing them behind again. But before we do that, we have to remember to also just move our cords. So again, split them into two, and then take the two on the right here, bring them up between the two wires on the right, and then over the top of the bottom one again, back into the middle. And the same with the other two, bring them up between the two wires on the side, and then over the top of the bottom one and back into the middle, and then join them up there again. And you can always just hold on to them with your hands. And the next movement is going to then help secure them back into place and kind of tighten them back up. And that means I'm going to take the outer length, and in this case it comes underneath previously, which means it needs to go over the top of the next wire. And remember, I'm then bringing it underneath the cords as well. And then just pull it nice and tight there, because it's going to then tighten up the wire on the side of the cord. Same with the other side. This one comes over previously. That means it needs to go underneath. And then over that middle one that we just brought from the other side. But make sure to stay underneath the cords as well. Bring it into the middle. Straighten everything back out. So we can see when I move the cords, we have that crossover point now there in the middle again, but underneath the cords. And that's then how we make this little hat section with the beads on. And to make the spacing between the hats, we're then making the braid behind the cords. But we're now in a position for the next hat section. So the outer wire on the right is coming underneath, which means I need to bring it over the top of the other one into the middle. And this one comes in front of the cords like that. On the other side, it's coming over the top of the previous crossover point there, and then that means I need to bring it underneath and then over the one in the middle, while also then of course in front of the cords. We have the first crossover point in place, which means I need to add my beads before I do my next movement. So take the very outer length of wire, add your bead, let it drop down, repeat on the other side, let that drop down, and then make your next movement, making sure those beads stay on the outer edges. So this one comes under, that means I need to bring it over and into the middle and make sure I'm trapping that bead in place. And on the other side, this comes over, so bring it under the next wire, over the one in the middle there. So of course also then in front of the cords. Smooth your wire out as you need to. And then that bead gets trapped in that outer corner, and we have again this little heart shape. But to completely finish that off, this is where we then need to bring our cords in between the wires. So separate them out, two on one side, bring them back into the middle, and the other two on the other side, over and back in the middle again. And you can then see we created the next little hat. So now we just want to kind of trap these cords in place. So I'm going to take the outer length of wire, it comes underneath previously, so it needs to go over the next wire here. And I always like to as well, before I actually move the wires, to just pull them tight a little bit so it tightens up the previous area in the braid. Bring it over that wire into the middle, and remember to go under the cords now, over to the opposite side. And then on this opposite side here, the very outer one, it goes underneath the next one because it came over previously, and then over that middle one, but again staying underneath the cords. So we've now created that little spacing and also tightened the cords back up. So we now need to make our next little hat section, and you just repeat what I already showed you. So bring your outer wire over that next one, come in front of the cords now. The one on the other side goes underneath and then over while coming in front of the cords as well. We create our crossover point, and then we want to add our bead to the outer wires before we make our next movement, and literally just continue like this, and you get these little cute hat shapes with some spacing in between. So now we need to finish off the ends here. So what I'm going to do is grab my glue, because if we just cut straight through this, the cord will just start going all over the place. So we kind of just want to settle it all in place first. So grabbing my glue, I'm just going to use a toothpick as an application tool, get some glue onto there. And then I just want to put the glue on the ends here on both the cord and the wire, where I'm going to cut through on both sides, and make sure you get it on all the cords and wire, and also in between some of the nooks and crannies there. And once we let the glue dry, then we can just take our cutters and cut straight through. So we make sure that once we've cut, the cord isn't going to unravel. So just cut through the end of both the cord and the wire like that. And then we have a straight line here where our ribbon end is going to fit over just perfectly, but we just need to add some glue to this. So I'm just grabbing my glue, and then I'm going to take a toothpick as an application tool and just add a bit of glue. And then you want to put that inside the ribbon end. Make sure to cover the inside walls. We don't need to fill it up completely because the end of the braid is going to go in here, or something like that. Then I'm going to take it and put it on the end here over the wires and the cord. Then I'm just going to grab onto the bracelet with my hand, and then put a finger on either side of the ribbon end so it stays in place, while I then take my pliers and start to squeeze it down. Now I like to do it a bit at a time, because it can move a little bit while we're doing it, so that when I'm almost all the way down, I just remove my fingers, make sure it's still in the middle, and then we can just go in and do a final squeeze. So make sure it's nice and tight, and also just going from the sides to close them up. And then of course we need to repeat the same on the other end, and then we have our loop so we can attach our findings. Then once we've added our clasp and extended chain, we just need to shape it here so it'll sit nicely on our wrist. So I'm just going to go into one place and start putting a curve into it. Make sure that the front with the hearts here is facing away from the piece, so we're getting the front outwards and the back inwards against the wrist. So I'm just going back and forth here from side to side, adding a curve into it. You can also shape it around something that has a size and shape you want it to have, like a bracelet mandrel. But the aim is to get the two ends close together, so we can of course use the clasp. And then the bracelet is finished and ready to wear. So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial for this romantic hearts braided wirework bracelet. Don't forget they will be available for sale in my shop, along with other jewelry kits and tutorials. And also, if you like braided wirework, I have a whole playlist full of tutorials for braided wirework designs. You'll be able to find that in the description box down below as well. Otherwise, I really hope you enjoyed this one. Thank you so much for watching it, and I'll see you in the next one.